Face front, true believers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And Rohith Dar.
10 years ago, Marvel's Daredevil stood above the rest and showed us the quality storytelling other shows were blind to. Now, with its official return, the burden falls to us to discern the truth by asking the question, will the new show measure up to the original? Join us as we start Discerning Daredevil, Born Again. All right, and tonight we are talking about Season 1, Episode 3, The Hollow of His Hand. Okay, so before we break into our format here, guys, we want to go kind of roundtable, just discuss our just overall thesis, feelings on the episode.
Rohit?
I think overall it's a well done episode of the show, and the first two episodes I think were decent to all right, and I think this episode really showcases what makes Daredevil such a unique character in the superhero genre. You know, him being a lawyer, and I think this episode does a really good job in showing the drama of the courtroom. Whether it's legally accurate, I can safely say that it's not all the way there, but I do appreciate sort of the theatrics of it. And man, Camar de los Reyes is the MVP of this episode, and probably will be one of the few MVPs of this season because he brings it all. And I'm happy to discuss into more detail like what he brings to the performance and the overall character of Hector Ayala's White Tiger.
All right. So, I gotta be honest. I'm up and down on this episode. I really am. The first watch, I don't know, just something felt a little off to me, and I think on the rewatch it was a lot better. But it's just, I don't know. I really don't think it was as good as our premiere episodes. That much I'm certain of. But I mean, there are obviously some really great elements to this episode that I think really did deliver. But I don't know. I feel now with this episode, we're very recently, because pretty much after all these episodes premiered, they're interviewing the showrunners and everything, so we're getting kind of more and more details and stuff about what's going on kind of behind the scenes in terms of like what was part of the old version of the show and what's kind of part of the new stuff, what was kind of reconfigured, et cetera, et cetera. And from what I understand, like this is firmly the majority of this episode on, where like this for the next couple episodes, where a lot of it is primarily kind of taken from that first half, like from like like the first pass of the show. And I mean, I'm seeing some fingerprints of that here. I mean, some people are a little split on the episode with the big thing we did with White Tiger, and again, I kind of see where they're coming from, but I think there's a lot of defense for what they did being the right choice and it being a really really a good showcase for this character in this episode. But there are a few things that I'm still kind of reconciling with this episode, But yeah, it was solid, but again, just not. I don't think the slam dunk that episodes 1 and 2 were so far.
Right. Yeah, I got to admit, I've kind of been up and down with just this show in general. I really, really, really want to love it. Honestly, I think out of the three of us, I think I'm probably the person where like the foggy moment in episode 1 still kind of rubs me the wrong way. I kind of feel like this show is kind of trying to have its cake and eat it too in regards to like now, I like some of the other players on Team Murdoch. I think Cherry is a gem that we'll kind of get into. I think he fits right in. I'm not really feeling the other Team Murdoch people. It's a far cry from the avocados at law that we had in the original series, just as far as like pure camaraderie goes. And Dragon, as you know, I think one of my big hangups, and it kind of continues in this episode, is I just don't, beyond the diner scene in episode 1, which was fantastic and was both Daredevil and Kingpin at their best. I'm not feeling Wilson Fisk this season, really. And I think a big part of it is just because we're doing that Disney Star Wars thing where we're bringing back the iconic character, but we're stripping him of one of his most iconic attributes, in this case, it's the Vanessa dynamic. I just think seeing Wilson Fisk go through marital drama, I'm sorry, this isn't Invincible. The marital drama is not the most compelling stuff in this show by a long bit. And look, I think Fisk himself has had some decent moments outside of that. Obviously, the big one being the diner scene. Vanessa, though, as a character, I think we've neutered her. I think by giving her the whole oh, she don't need no man. It's like the character was so intriguing specifically because she was so loyal to Fisk. So I don't know. The whole thing just feels a little off. And then the whole oh no, but Matt's dating the therapist who's doing the couples counseling with the Fisks. It just seems a little that element of the episode I really do not care for. I find the therapist girlfriend to be a very forgettable character, frankly. I don't really think she has a lot of screen presence. That being said, I agree full-heartedly with Rohit. With the White Tiger stuff in this episode is fantastic. The courtroom stuff in this episode, I'm sure isn't actually court accurate to real life, but it's still really good. It's kind of like a great sort of Sorkin-esque kind of courtroom drama in the best of ways, and I think we've got some really good moments. It's a great episode for Matt. But yeah, overall, man, this is coming out of 3 episodes. It's more shaky than I want it to be. That's for sure. And also, I feel like the biggest thing, unfortunately, is that it kind of suffers from that sort of patented Disney Plus pacing, where I feel like we're lingering a little bit too long on every beat, and it's making the show just the show is just a little too slow paced for its own good, just as far as the editing goes. So yeah, I wish I was more into it. I wish I was more jazzed about it. I will say Invincible just fucking finished a historic run of episodes. So I truly feel like this show is a little bit in Invincible's shadow right now. I feel like now that Invincible's over, we can kind of get fully into this narrative and not have that's maybe a me thing more than anything.
Well, that's absolutely a you thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so Rohit, you have something you want to say after that? I might have to make a confession, but I think you should probably go first.
Yeah. So I wanted to say in regards to Tiki thing, my issue so far with this show is that I'm just not feeling Wilson Fisk as mayor. And I feel like Wilson Fisk was way more intimidating in season 3 when he was had the control of the FBI, and just doesn't feel that same way as mayor. And
I also feel like the mayor campaign, we very much speed ran through it, right?
Yeah, no, it's because from what I understand, at least through sort of the scoopers and leakers that have covered sort of the changes for the show, is episode 2 is the original version of the show. Episode 2 is the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
And Mayor's and Whiskey's
basically episode 1 was something that was completely that was after
that was
okay Netflix
episode
into existence. That's essentially what episode 1 was. That was they went back and just basically redid okay, let's do so. For example, from what I understand, originally Foggy was killed by a dirty cop and not Bullseye at all, and it was off screen.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah. I'm sorry. Go on, Rohit.
And Karen wasn't involved in the original version of the show, and neither was Bullseye. So Tiki, to your point about the whole Vanessa stuff, the part of it is that they had a different actress altogether.
That's true.
I think when the show was revamped, and this is something that's pointed out by people who do breakdowns of the shows, that when you see Wilson and Vanessa, they're apart, and there's sort of a subtext they're having marital issues, but also they brought in the old actress.
It's not my Vanessa.
No, they just did her scene.
You're not my Vanessa.
No, but like they shot in a way to where it doesn't feel like they're both in the same room.
Yeah.
I think a lot of sort of the issues that Tiki's pointed out with the Vanessa plot, I wonder if had the show been revamped like more fully, if that was going to be the angle that they would have Vanessa come in. I think for me, I like the idea of there being issues between Kingpin and Vanessa, because in the comics, like, they're not actually such a lovey-dovey couple. But I can understand that the way it's presented, it just feels maybe stereotypical and not unique to their relationship dynamic. So I can definitely understand, it feeling sort of pedestrian. And as for the supporting characters, like, yeah, Cherry's cool, but I think really, like, I feel like if it was Mahoney, it just feels right. But Cherry's a good character. The girlfriend, I don't mind as much. I just feel like Kristen McDuffie, she's just kind of smiles and like spunk, but like doesn't really add much to the thing. But let's get into the whole meat of the episode.
Well,
Right. Yeah.
Just real quick, I was kind of trying to sidestep this, but after kind of hearing both of you guys, I think I should probably admit something here. When I was watching this episode for the first time, I kind of had this pit in my stomach. I think this is the first time I've ever had a Daredevil episode just not wow me, or have that horrible realization of like, oh no, this isn't landing with me like literally every other episode of the series.
Right.
So I kind of had that realization, and it was basically kind of somewhat, maybe, again, I'm not saying it's
because I honestly think that this episode is, like, for me personally, just because we do have some good courtroom stuff, I think it's a little bit of a step up from the first two.
Like, I want to be clear, this is not like a truly bad episode or anything. I'm just saying, in comparison to what we've gotten before, and just in general with the series, this is like the moment of like, oh no, we're not bulletproof anymore. This is, or at least overall bulletproof anymore. Like, I know season 2 has its thing. You know what I mean? I'm saying,
I'm gonna say, like, season 2 is far.
I know, that's what I'm getting at. Before, like, the marker of it was like 2 was like, compared to, like, the CW shows, it was still like the highest art form. Like, even like the worst of 2 was like still better than anything else we were doing at that time. Anyway, like, it still worked. It was just condensed. That's what I would attest with season 2, is that the Elektra stuff was, I think, ultimately good. It could have been better though, but anyway. Well, I said it could have been better. I'm just saying we crammed it in there.
I don't know if it was good, but that's either here or there.
Okay, my point being, this is like when I'm starting to hear like, oh boy, what if Tiki's right? What if Morgan can go off the rails? and yeah, basically I think this episode kind of goes to show, a little bit basically.
What if it's mid?
Don't you dare say that. But seriously, it was kind of like what Rohith was saying, where the cracks are kind of showing that, we do have a lot of, like, we're seeing the conflicting visions here in terms of the edit can only save it so much. And the fear that I'm having is, I'm having this sneaking suspicion that, oh God, what if season 2 of Born Again is tremendously better, because again, it's going to be more of like, kind of what we were all kind of hoping, expecting, and they're going to be able to gestate, not being connected to what they've already shot before. But that means still we're going to have, maybe a rough ride in parts of season 1 here, where again, we're kind of stuck with plot lines that were in the original script that we then improved as much as we can with the leeway that we now have. And that's kind of the fear that I have after this episode, where, I mean, I'm still looking forward to the really good parts that we're going to get, and the stuff that works, but I'm just worried that, oh no, it might not be as smooth a ride as I think we were all primed and ready for with season 3 of Daredevil.
So not to burst your bubble too much, Dragon, on that part, there was someone that was able to watch all 9 episodes of this show, and they relayed that the way the show ends, they wish was season 4. Or like was where the show started.
I heard, all I've heard is that the finale, very much episodes 1 and 9 are full on like basically the things we've gotten since the the reworking of things. So it's very much in the tone.
8 and 9.
Well, okay, I'm just saying you're right. So 1, 8, and 9. So the point being, it sounds like our beginning and ending are going to be very full circle in nature, which that inspires confidence, but does mean I have no idea how we're from point A to point B how it's going to go. That's what because I really loved episode 1 of this. I really did.
I will say, in terms of having to salvage a prior version of a project, it is certainly more smoother than Justice League. I will say that.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Okay. Anyway, so let's not bury the lead with all the other. Let's not talk about all the other stuff early. Let's get into the plot.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to lay out a little plot synopsis here. So it's the trial of Hector Ayala takes place after safely getting Nicky Torres to court. He's intimidated into recanting his testimony, which leads to the desperate play of outing Hector as White Tiger in court. The crime families are causing trouble in Red Hook without Fisk overseeing them, and Fisk is disagreeing with Vanessa's approach in resolving the matter. Hector, by the end, he's found not guilty. Yay! But is killed later that night by a man wearing a very distinctive costume.
Dragon, how you framed that was almost like a good idea, bad idea.
Yeah.
Good idea. Hector goes free. Bad idea. He gets killed by someone who looks suspiciously like the Punisher.
Womp womp.
All
That's
right.
the episode.
Okay, so let's go into arcs. Do you want to just break it down, like stuff with the trial and then stuff going on with Fisk?
Well, yeah. We traditionally would like to start with Matt, and this is a very Matt-driven episode, so we're going to start talking about like Matt and all the trial stuff. So yeah.
So
all but the parts that we might want to discuss later. But yes.
So I feel like the big issue for Matt this episode is like how hard he wants to push the case, maybe in directions that his client is not necessarily comfortable with, even if it's gonna be like a case winning move on his end. I think a lot of it just kind of comes down to that sort of push and pull tension. And also, I think one of the reasons I was really digging Matt's arc this episode, and Dragon, I'm sure you can agree with me, and Rohit too, is that throughout this whole episode, it's like Matt is almost putting himself up on trial. Like, there are so many parallels between what he's seen in the White Tiger stuff and what he's personally having to deal with hanging up the Daredevil costume. And I think that's a really interesting kind of dynamic we got going on. Like when he's lecturing Ayala on, if you get acquitted, your White Tiger days are over. You get the sense like he's more telling that to himself. You know what I mean? He's more kind of reflecting on like, yeah, this is going to change things. So
we've seen him do a little bit of this before with the Punisher on trial. There's a lot of parallels between this and the Punisher trial, interestingly. So and also the leaps in courtroom logic, like the Punisher episodes. I'm sure Rohit can attest to. Regardless, overall, though, I think the biggest strength of this episode, the biggest thing that felt like kind of classic Daredevil, this episode had going for it, is compelling courtroom drama and the fact that we can have an episode where Matt doesn't put on the suit and have it, put on his lawyer's suit instead and have it really work. And he's throwing himself into this. Basically, we kind of seen this a little bit with Defenders, and the best thing I think Morgan's had going for is we're basically doing kind of a retirement story a lot more, kind of strongly and more compellingly than we did in Defenders, where he tends to throw himself into law when he's on kind of a retirement kick, and when he does so, it also there's a hint of like he's bringing the aggression that he can't get at with his fist into law, and we're seeing some consequence here. Within this episode, this is a personal case for him in relating it to what he's going through, and it's the reminder of basically this is like a reminder of why the double life as Daredevil is kind of necessary. The law is kind of failing him here. There's a lot of witness tampering going on. There's intimidation happening, which is the stuff he usually would be able to kind of. At least he struggled with, but ultimately he would, kind of find workarounds for going back to like episode 3 of season 1 of Daredevil, with the Helix trial. But I ultimately through the series, this has always been kind of Matt Murdock's downfall, is that he needs to be both Matt and Daredevil. They need to kind of he needs both in his life and just find some sort of balance, which is the wonderful conflict of the character and why we tune in every so often. he has like this episode pushes him through such frustration and desperation on this case that he has the big Perry Mason gambit that we'll talk about later. He does something very hypocritical in this episode, and I love that we call him on it, like in Chambers. You know, it's a hypocritical turn, but you know, again, like Hector's basically it's kind of like it's like a self-righteous projection of sorts, where he's basically doing this for Hector's benefit, and he's not necessarily wrong, but him taking the choice away from Hector and basically imparting his views on vigilantism onto Hector, saying, "Well, these are your last days as White Tiger." That's him making a choice against. We're seeing a really interesting, flawed portrayal of Matt Murdock, which I think is a respectable, interesting decision that we've made here that I don't think any of us really expected. And it's kind of a reason, like, what are we bringing back to the table with Born Again? So I really like that we're going there.
Well, I mean, I think it's just continuing on sort of what the portrayal of Matt Murdock was in the Netflix show, where, you know, as much as Matt is considerate of others, there are certain times, especially in season 2, when he just kind of leaves people to hang in the lurch, especially Poggy and Karen. And that's sort of the struggle for Matt, where, you know, I remember the specific line from season 3 where it's like, you have all these friends, and it's like, that must mean you're a good person or you're worthwhile. It's like, no, they're just that good. And it's just that I think that's the thing that makes Matt Murdock such a compelling character, is that he is a good man, but he is not without flaws, and his flaws stem from his goodness. And I think that kind of tension back and forth is what makes him such a compelling character throughout mediums.
Oh yeah, and I got to be honest, you know, in terms of the carryover of this episode, we ended on a pretty big kind of cliffhanger, not a cliffhanger per se, but a really shocking moment last episode. And I was genuinely wondering, oh my God, did he accidentally kill these guys? Because he's held in kind of like, you know, the desire to the punch bad guys. So
yeah, you know what? That is a good point, where it kind of feels like we sort of yada-ya'd over that a little bit.
That I wasn't crazy about. We'll get into that, I suppose. Well, I guess we can get into a little bit here. Yeah, the way without talking about the way we actually opened this episode, it really did feel like we should have picked up there, or maybe we should have started either with the stuff in Red Hook as the cold open, and then we get to like open on the bathroom, you know, kind of the bathroom encounter during the trial. But at the very least, that encounter in the bathroom encounter with him and Officer Powell, it did feel like, just given the magnitude of the end of 2, that was the first moment of like, why aren't we I need to know what happened at the end. Like,
right.
Where's our continuation? That was your big draw. And
and especially because that could have been like the one time we actually do see Matt in the suit in the episode.
Well, I don't know about that, but
well, I think for me, it would have been interesting to see like the few moments after Matt kind of composing himself and, like, I don't know, calling 911 or something, that even though if he went too far, he's able to come back, and like, these are dirty cops, but he's willing to, you know, value life at a fundamental level. That would have been a good character mode for Matt, but we kind of just jumped over, and somehow, like, the end of it was the way it's shot.
It felt ambiguous on purpose, right? You have to wonder, like, oh God, did he accidentally? Like, because the way that guy, you hear a snap when that guy falls on his head, like,
and the fact that the episode literally ends with a primal scream.
Yep, the primal scream, which of course huge callback to, you know, like, you know, Dex and King.
And I'm sorry, Dragon, you're right. I jumped the gun there. He was not in his costume when that attack happened. So yeah. That would not have been a good example of him going back to the costume. I don't know what I was thinking there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So regardless, it does feel like I felt like. Let me ask you this, Rohith. Did you view that as an intentional choice, that, you know, ending on the primal scream and everything like we did, that there was a question of, like, those guys, you don't hear them breathing, they're not moving? I found it to be an intentionally ambiguous kind of choice.
I thought they were, like, dead.
I hope they were alive, but I mean, they look pretty dead.
I don't know.
Although, granted, with the season of Invincible, maybe that's better.
Well, that's the thing. And I wondered if they were
the table. Invincible has its criticisms of fake out, like how many people actually stay dead.
Right.
Like,
well, that's true. Yeah. All right. Anyways.
Anyway. But yeah, so it just felt kind of like, I don't know, that felt like too big a moment to not like directly pick up with. But the way we did pick up with it is kind of fun, though. It's the idea there's kind of a mutually assured destruction kind of agreement with between Murdoch and Officer Powell in the bathroom. He's making fun of him on the when he's on the stand about
the future of black guys, fast hands.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is such classic Matt Dickery right there.
Yep. Oh yeah, that guy earned it though. Powell's such a jerk. I think it would have been funny if he was in let's be honest, okay? He really should have been in a neck brace.
Oh God.
I'm saying that was a really hard fall. His head literally dented the refrigerator and his blood smeared on it. That was pretty.
Maybe in the MCU, humans are just a little tougher than the average human being. Maybe the dirty cops have access to a low-level super soldier serum.
Okay, come on. Get with it, Rohith. Come on.
All right.
Anyway, so let's talk about well, I'd like to say a little bit of Wilson Fisk that we actually do get in this episode. So this kind of bothered me. This is like the other like moment I had during an episode where it feels like he was too in the background this episode. I'll tell you what I was really sick of. I really didn't like the whole Mr. Murdoch, how do you feel about Wilson Fisk saying this? Could we have seen Wilson Fisk saying this?
And again, I kind of feel like that's just the byproduct of what we've been talking about, where it's like it really does feel like there's elements that we're getting where it's just like just two shows kind of mixed together, So it's a shame, but I kind of feel like we are sort of in that territory a little bit.
Mm-hmm. It's like here's the thing. Even just taking what we have, I really wish the connection that we're making. I think it's somewhat there, but again, we're not really spending enough time within this episode to draw the line, to draw the connection with it. Is that it feels like what we should be saying is that he would be keeping a better eye on this. I mean, we kind of say it in like just kind of expositional text, with the with the whole like, how do you feel about this, Mr. Murdoch? It feels like Kingpin should be distracted with trying to salvage his marriage. With why he's not keeping as close tabs on the trial. I don't know. That's where it feels like it should be like he's really been taken off his game with what's going on with the marriage counseling. At the very least, that he and Vanessa are not in sync like he wants them to be. I feel that should be like the distraction that is taking him away from the story, but we're not really. I don't think we're putting as fine a point on it, and that bothers me.
I think for me, my moment for Fisk, this wasn't this episode, but it was last episode where he like is eating a cheesesteak and is intimidating a police commissioner. He's like, come on, this is not a classic.
Okay, that was great.
I don't know. It's a little cheesy the way that
it was a lot of fun. Come on.
No,
I still love the way. No, but that's your favorite.
The intimidation scene has to be like. The thing about Kingpin, him being mayor, it's like you should feel like, oh, the person who runs New York City is the shark. It's the black hole. Like people like had their breath stop when he came to a room, and it feels like when he's mayor, he lost just a little bit of power intimidation.
Well, remember, even Gallo pointed out to him that you less money and less power, to be mayor. So here's what I think it is. Okay. With Kingpin, it's twofold. I was going to save this a little bit for later, but I mean, I can bring it up a little bit now. Is that I think I have a theory as to what Kingpin's doing. I think we're kind of lulling people into a bit of a false sense of security. We're not fully knowing what he's doing. And for example, I'm convinced that he's kept his word not to kill Adam, but we keep focusing on those bloody knuckles. I'm convinced. He's basically keeping Adam prisoner and basically beating him on the regular. I'm convinced that's what's happening. Because again, he can't let anyone. He's defiled his wife. He's not going to let him. He is not going to let that slide. He won't kill him to keep his word, but he is beating him on the regular, nursing him back to health, and beating him again. And I think with a reveal like that, potentially, I think this is the kind of stuff we're showing. Okay, he is still the menacing Kingpin we all know, but again, he's just keeping it hidden for the time being, or at the very least, he's trying to keep it like kind of stuffed down before it'll start bleeding into like him as mayor. So I think we're just playing the long game with that right now. But you're right, though. In the interim, it doesn't paint a great. It doesn't help that because we're saddled with Echo. there is still like the show is playing with, and D'Onofrio is legitimizing as much as he can. And again, the performance is there, but again, it's the lack of information where he wanted to be mayor to make a change because internally, I think he was just reminded through Echo, like, the positive impact he could make on the city, which was his aspirations back in season 1. It does feel like, again, he's trying to get back to that, but they're not explicitly saying that. And if the way he's kind of playing is he doesn't fully understand why either because of what Echo did to his mind. And I just need, I need us to kind of firmly state like why being mayor matters to him. We need to get back to him like saying, I believe in this city, kind of like he did in season 1, but we're not quite hitting that beat yet. And I just wish that this episode kind of drags its feet with it, where I can give him like an episode of like just kind of fun cheesesteak stuff. So once we get back to like, I need to know that, and also I would like a throwaway line about the blip helping him get out of prison. I really want to know how that, how he's able to actually.
Yeah, the whole him being out of prison thing. That's another thing where it's like, what are we doing exactly? Like, what continuity?
And not just being out of prison, but being basically an active crime lord in the.
Although I will say that again with the accurate Trump parallels,
Well, that's how he got elected, though. That's the thing. So, Rohit,
convicted criminal. You know what I mean?
So, Rohit, I looked into, from a cursory level, I looked into if kind of someone with Fisk's rap sheet could become mayor, and like in New York specifically. Now, I can only find out so much because I see in some places, I don't know if specifically New York, and in most places, like it's not specified, the criminal backstory to be mayor specific, criminal background to be mayor specifically. At least, again, cursory look, just like posing like the literal questions of the internet and seeing what like government sites and stuff would say, like if it's actually like a stipulation. I don't know if there was fine print or not, but as far as I could tell, some offices, I don't know, in certain states, like they don't throw out the whole. They don't factor. It's like you have to be the right age. You have to be in the city during the election, stuff like that. Like, is there a feasible way, as far as you're aware, that someone Fisk's backstory, assuming he was like eventually released from prison, could become mayor?
According to NewYorkCourts.gov, if you have been convicted of a felony or misdemeanor, the key word is you may be barred from public office jobs.
Right, the may.
The may is important because it's permissive. Whereas, if it was you shall or you must be barred, then like it's strict. There's no you may.
Well, yeah.
The discretionary. So, yeah.
Because I assume he probably greased a lot of palms or something to at least make. I think probably have a lot of his charges or whatever bumped down to get him an early release of some kind, blip or no blip, like somehow. Together, I imagine he pinned a lot of the murders on Bullseye. That's what I really think happened, but I don't know.
Yeah,
but I mean that makes sense. But again, it would definitely be nice to clarify that.
Yeah, exactly. I just need like a throwaway line because all we've gotten is like Gallo's last episode, kind of mentioning like you've killed cops before. That's as much as we've really gotten. That he's as puzzled by it as we, the audience, are. Anyway, right. So I'm sorry. Did you have anything you wanted to throw in with the whole kind of?
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe like the way to grease the palms is like maybe he got like a pardon from whoever's like the governor of New York.
Yeah.
Although he did kill an FBI agent, so it's like there's federal crime.
I mean, he infiltrated the FBI. He basically corrupted the FBI. So.
Yeah, but he's got that murder pin on him rather than Vanessa. So
I remember though Nadeem. Well, actually, that thing he couldn't. No, remember Bullseye pulled the trigger on Nadeem though.
No, but Bullseye was acting in service of Kingpin.
Yeah, but that's all I'm saying is for all the murders that we do know that were made under the order of the Kingpin. I wonder if the big the legal loophole again, like the kind of miracle exception for the whole. Okay, would this really happen? It real obviously no, but I'm saying. The idea that got that much money and power, perhaps he could get somehow get that part suppressed and basically have all these specific murders pinned to only Bullseye and like who discrediting Bullseye and using all the tapes and everything. Okay, so Bullseye clearly he's out of his gourd. He went off the reservation, did all this. We didn't know like somehow.
Well, no,
not claim responsibility.
Healy also turned. right? Because I think that's probably what pinned him, because like he was the agent that like killed that other FBI agent, turned on Fisk. So unless she was, taken off the board or she
Right.
recanted.
Well, I think it's possible. I mean, they're playing a lot with the 7 years in time, though, so we don't know what happened in the interim. But that's what I'm saying. But again, we need at least something to say, just like a throwaway line of some kind.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, he and Vanessa seem to be on diverging paths of how to handle Red Hook. And basically, his plan is like just let them take each other out. He wants to distance himself from the criminal world, at least it would seem. And Vanessa wants to take an active way of finessing the situation to basically like, okay, we want people on our side because the winner's going to come after us, which we don't want.
Mm-hmm.
And in the marriage counseling scene, we have. I think it's interesting that the underlying struggle with them is that Vanessa, cheated on Fisk, but they're not addressing this in therapy, which they really should be. And that seems like she thinks that he's punishing her, and which I really believe that he's not punishing her for that. He's punishing Adam for that, but she doesn't know. That's right. Again, I think, but I don't. I'm just saying we're showing a lot of knuckle shots.
An avid player of bloody knuckles. The king. Like, what if that's? Can a man not partake in some quarters? Some nickels. The hard ones are the pennies, but you just gotta, line your sights. But
we know Kingpin loves to throw a beat down. We saw we did that Ice Cream Man in Echo. That's
what if Adam is the Ice Cream Man?
Oh, no.
He was like, I will. You take my dignity. I'll take your wife.
No, that's just Vanessa's nickname for him. Anyway, but regardless, though, just so it feels like they should be that's the real issue. They should be addressing in therapy, but they're not, which I don't know. So we'll see how that goes. I think it would be interesting to actually show the therapy session, but we keep cutting away from it.
I just realized it's like the whole plot of Kingpin and Vanessa going to therapy. I wonder if the original version was that was them kind of homaging The Sopranos to a certain extent, but the twist is like instead of just Tony, it's Tony and his wife that are in therapy.
I think there was one episode of The Sopranos where I think they did bring her in for one session, didn't go well, so they never did again.
Oh, I know that like Tony, like a big part of the show is like him seeing his.
No, you're right. No, that's from episode 1. That's the whole premise.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I shouldn't say it's essentially the premise.
Yeah, so I don't know if that was them just like that whole plot, like just them homaging. Even a mob boss has like personal problems.
Well, just to your earlier point, right? Because I said the same thing or episodes earlier with Tiki. I'm on board for whether we're just saddled with it or not. Even if we're saddled with it, even if we're just making the best of the situation that we have, it does fit just in lines of like the grand scheme of like we did a big reversal with I can't even say reversal because it's like we never saw how Fisk and Vanessa really met in the comics. We just saw them married and then being on the rocks. But I guess it stands to reason that there was a time where they could have really been in love at the start of it, and then we're just seeing kind of the unhappy kind of married years for them, which we did see a lot in the comics, especially the Jason Aaron run. That's where things got really messed up. Messed up in a good way, messed up in like a twisted way. The Jason Aaron run, the Punisher.
Yeah.
But regardless of this, I'm not. So long as we actually go somewhere within Vanessa isn't just kind of languishing. So long as like we keep putting Vanessa on the periphery of like, what is she doing as Queenpin? That I want to see more of. And I was hoping like episode 3 on, we're going to be able to see what proactive stuff she does beside from giving like Cashman some cash to to pay our 5 families with.
And honestly, I kind of feel like the whole setup of the botched robbery gone wrong. I feel like it was a little bit sloppy how we got to that point. Like I just kind of feel like they're almost kind of like throwing plot points against the wall and seeing what sticks. Almost, I don't know.
Which is funny mentioning about the rock because like there's in the trailer there is a scene of like a robbery taking place that Matt's a part of. So it's like, okay, it just feels like more like, all right, here's a cool sequence or set piece.
Right. Yeah.
And not of like, all right, is this fit in line with the goals and motivations of the characters in the show or in that particular scene?
Yeah. All right. Okay, so ultimately with Kingpin, by the end of it, he sees he potentially, I can't even say he sees an opportunity here because again we spend so little time with him. He comes in at the very end with a kind of a cool speech about vigilantes and what he the implication being he's going to definitely turn what happens in his favor with, okay, I did shout out the Punisher last episode as to not liking him being a menace to the city, and I think I now have, even working a hero vigilante in my favor, I can turn what the tragedy that happened into my anti-vigilante campaign. That's the vibe that I got from in terms of where we're going with him from, where this episode ended. So it's very much
I do like that. I do like
Yeah.
the. I think that's one of the strongest parts of the episode. Honestly, is just that kind of like that cliffhanger idea. And again, it's a very Trump idea of like, like you can take something positive and just twist it into being a negative just because you're power hungry.
That's great. Again, I love our ending with that. I just really wish we kind of saw him actively watching the trial versus I don't know, the reveal shot of him watching trial was great, but I don't know, it just felt maybe like he would have a vested interest in this given his platform. We would might see that. All right. Okay, so let's talk about the man in white, the other man in white. Let's talk about Hector Ayala.
Yeah, Rohit, you want to start? You seem like you're pretty passionate about him.
No, I think the way Camar de los Reyes plays Hector, it's reserved, it's earnest, and there's a real humanity to it. And I think it's a really interesting contrast to how Hector Ayala goes about his vigilantism as compared to, say, someone like Matt. Because Matt, as much as we appreciate his sense of justice, even Matt himself admits that there is sort of this animalistic, violent side to him that is able to be expressed through being Daredevil. And whereas for White Tiger, it's just, for the most part, there's never really any sense that Hector is just a little off or is, vindictive or is like, it would have been an interesting direction that for White Tiger to maybe be a little morally ambiguous and maybe have had some scuffles with the law. And then that would have made this case harder for him when he's brought to trial. But I think him kind of being this sort of, not to be too crude or just like basic with this comparison, he is sort of the Puerto Rican and Black Panther, this kind of reserved, bastion or avatar of this community. And I think with his sort of opening monologue when he talks about, his home in Puerto Rico, the way he's able to, and he helps that Camar de los Reyes, I think is Puerto Rican. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. The way he's able to, characterize his home, the color and richness of it, it feels very similar to, say, how Black Panther, when we were first introduced him in the MCU, he talks about sort of the afterlife and this kind of poetry, this beauty to his homeland. And I think, throughout this episode, he is kind of this beating moral heart that he doesn't say a lot or puts himself out to just do the right thing. He just does it. And I really appreciate how at the end, near the end of the trial, it's Matt's concept, why, and you did it. And why did you do it? Because it was the right thing to do. And he keeps, and that, I think that is such a, oftentimes I think people, when they talk about MC heroes, they're sort of the standard criticism or template that it's like, oh, they're just kind of the quippy, action hero type. But for characters like, say, T'Challa and specifically Hector Ayala, they are these reserved, stoic men that have this, beating heart. And I think the fact that, Hector talks about him getting his own home or own place for him and his wife, and being really proud and wanting to surprise his wife with that particular purchase, that was such a uniquely human moment. And I think that's the thing that I think this episode does really well, is that, even though it's a show about this one particular vigilante, it's in a venue, we're able to see other people's lives. And I think the fact that Hector Ayala, even though, his end is so tragic, and both for him and for the actor, off screen, this episode gives White Tiger his due. He's like, he's shown to be this honorable, heroic vigilante. And I think that just gives more fuel for Daredevil when he comes back to the suit to fight not just for the average person, but for lost contemporaries and colleagues of White Tiger. We now can see a world where both Daredevil and White Tiger could have teamed up and stop crime and save their city. So
yeah, I mean, like, this episode, he's in a hopeless situation. He's really reflective on the choices that have led him to this moment, that led him to become a vigilante. He's making peace he's kind of making peace with the end of his freedom potentially, and he is. I love how incensed he gets at the cops that he saved. Kind of going against them, and even just like this, the image of like all those cops, and kind of the, it's kind of like the gallery, just with the black bands on the badges and everything, just like this, the sitting in judgment there. And again, this is before they find out that he's White Tiger, and I just love how that kind of turn is there, where there's some conflicting feelings there. A lot of the cops kind of like White Tiger. Not all of them, but a few.
And I mean, there's testimony. Well, there's like written reports of police officers being saved by White Tiger. So
that scene I really loved. I did consider that for my blinding moment, and hindsight. I don't know. I might be using that, but this is still a really good scene. I do love how it's such vindication for him. Where it's basically he's upset at being outed, but all the testimonies that he hears, it ultimately gives him closure. His family and the people of New York, they supported him. Even a number of the the judgmental cops, they all they're all kind of seeing like the value in what he's done, and basically kind of reaffirms like in doing the right thing, he's made the right choice, and his refusal to give up in kind of doing this service, and and picking up Daredevil's slack. It's tragic how it kind of seals his fate, though.
Yeah, but also when you think about it, it's good. Like his death, at least I hope his death will mean something for the larger show, because because think of it this way: had just Hector, gone about his White Tiger stuff, eventually, maybe someone would have gone to hurt him, maybe our family, or it just gets in a situation where things don't work out for him. But specifically coming out and just shooting him in the head, like effectively the people involved in that have just made Hector Ayala a martyr, and that's going to bring more heat and more fire to someone like Daredevil to really bring some justice.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so the payoff ultimately, so he's found not guilty, and this is kind of like, for a brief moment, this is kind of the dream of the approved vigilante. Like everyone finds out everyone knows who the vigilante is.
Mm-hmm.
They like him. They are rallies behind him. But the cost of that one brief moment in the sun where everything's just really great, and it's like the both lives kind of fusing into one. It's like this is everything Daredevil could ever dream of to some degree, and it's just like the cost of that. It's, again, there's kind of a parallel. This is gonna be a weird comparison. I think it's a bit of a parallel to what happened with Jack Murdoch in his fate, in the sense of he did something.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Yeah.
Just in the sense of like he had that one brief moment of victory where he didn't take a dive, he didn't, actually fought to the end to inspire his son, and it was like that brief moment of he knew he was going to get him killed, but he was happy that he did on his terms, and then knowing it was coming imminently, and then he got killed. And in a sense, that's kind of what happens here with Ayala, where he's, again, everything worked out for him. He refused to give up, and he's still going out as as White Tiger. And then, of course, because everyone knows who he is, and because of people having opinions on that, they gunned them down.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it's it's definitely, I thought it was Ayala's whole story here was very strong. So I guess that brings us. I mean, those are our major arcs. I mean, we could a lot of everything else is going to kind of fit in elsewhere. I mean, you guys don't really seem to have much to say about Heather Glenn, so we should probably.
remind me which one is the therapist and which one?
Heather's the therapist.
Oh, come
Kirsten
on!
is the
No, Dragon. I say that because both of the women in this show are very, very forgettable, especially compared to a character like Karen Page.
Okay, I will say this.
Big shoes to fill there, buddy. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
okay. Well, Karen's coming back. All right, she'll be back. All right, stop everyone with the.
She might be back for like an episode to be like, "Hey, I'm back, and now I'm going back to San Francisco again."
She might hopefully stay. I think she's probably. I bet she'll stick around for season 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just think it's just frustrating that we got to this point where it's like, like at first it's like, okay, we're not going to have any characters from the original, but no, now we're going to bring Karen and Foggy back only to kill Foggy immediately and basically have Karen up on the sidelines until season 2. It's no, anyways. Okay, let's get some positivity here though.
Okay, let's
just transition into the blinding moment of awesome. Okay, so
wait.
What?
Do we can we do the thing?
Oh yes, I'm sorry, I forgot about the thing. Yes, my bad. Let me find the thing. Okay, damn it. Now I forget where to find it. Hold on. Okay, I got it. No, I don't.
Dragon, where's the blinding moment for us all?
Where is it?
Well, it's in like one of the. I don't know where the buttons are. Tiki, you have the.
Fuck.
I can't see the controls.
Ladies and gentlemen, this really are embodying Matt Murdock.
I'm not seeing it.
Oh man.
Well, we're just gonna move on from there.
I'm sorry, Dragon. I'm really not seeing it. Maybe it's under. Oh, okay. Hold on. Okay, Dragon, cue it up one more time.
All right, folks. Let's get into the blinding moment of awesome.
Blind Matt Murdock. I'm blind Matt Murdock. I'm blind Matt Murdock.
All right. That was the big reveal, Rohit.
Where is that? Who says that? I'm trying to.
Foggy. It's our tribute to Foggy.
Look at me, I'm blind Matt Murdock. All right.
Can we?
Okay, so I have my moment kind of bookends the episode. So do you think I should go first or last?
Well, T, you should go first. But can we get the visual back?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second.
You can't chew gum and podcast at the same time, folks. All right.
Okay, so yes, I love this, and Rohit, you kind of pointed out too, just the culture involving the White Tiger, and what I love about this opening conversation. Although, granted, I agree with Dragon. It's not exactly awesome that we start the episode and don't really address the seeming cliffhanger from episode 2. That's not great, but you know what? I still think it's a really well played scene. Matt's talking to Hector from his jail cell, and Hector's kind of talking about how he misses his island, how he misses his home, and especially this the cookie. Rohit, is that right? Cookie.
Yes.
It's literally how Cookie Monster.
I told you it sounded like Cookie.
Cookie. Okay. Yeah, the Cookie Frog. I love the whole thing with the Cookie Frog. For me, it's just this whole monologue, and especially I love the sound design of it, guys. I don't really think the original Daredevil show ever did anything with this kind of non-diegetic sound where we get sort of the almost tropical music. We get a little bit of kind of the waves coming in, and I love the whole, like, it's kind of just Hector kind of reminiscing on his like Dragon said, the fact that he might be losing his freedom, and just the idea of like the frog being a nuisance for tourists. But if you're a local and you know what it means and you know what it represents, the whole thing about how all the frogs are trying to find their mates, and the kind of like the poetic, like, eternal romance of it all. I think it's a very powerful sentiment. And then to have that sound get looped back around at the very end of the episode, after this character has ultimately like had the ultimate victory and then the ultimate defeat right afterwards. I mean, it's a powerful statement, man. I think it really is one of the things in this episode that did kind of rise to the occasion as far as like being up to par with the Netflix stuff, just as far as the setup and payoff of the writing.
Oh, absolutely. I think the credits playing the sound of cookies, like I was like,
it's chilling, man.
Well,
I think it's
initially
really
for a second it was like, is this? I think because I'm just so obviously we're all trained in the MCU, just like whenever there's a certain sound or a certain thing, like at the credits, like, oh, this will go into a scene. But this the fact there's just the music of the Goki playing was really, it's like, oh, this just like, I think people rewatched the episode and appreciating the Hector Ayala of it all. Well, that moment's gonna hit.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Yeah, we should do my moment next. Okay, so I did agonize over which moment to pick, because let's face it, Rohit took the best one, which we're gonna get to. But yeah, I mean, it's between this and it was between basically the testimonials for for Ayala. But this I gotta admit, though, ultimately it was because this moment is the most truly engrossed I was in the episode, where I was so dialed in to getting Nikki Torres on the stand, and I was just very engrossed because it was kind of the matchstick moment of the episode. We think Nikki Torres can go on the stand, and then
very much the matchstick moment of the episode. Yeah,
where we're building the Torres on the stand, and obviously we subvert that, but just getting him there. I got such Nadim vibes in terms of like the battle to get your witness to the courthouse and people trying to stop and or kill him on the way. So I was just very dialed into Cherry and Tam, to Cherry's buddy. Getting Torres to testify with Pal on his tail. When I saw,
did you say Nadim?
Nadim!
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't you mean Nadim? Nadim! Just had to bring that back.
It's refreshing, and all the the resurgence of Daredevil and just everything, anticipating the show. People still love
Nadim. Nadim was a bright spot of season 3, man. Season 3 was great, and he was one of the better parts of it. Anyways.
Oh yeah. All right. Anyway, but yeah. So the fact that Pal is like on his tail, like seeing him on the motorcycle, is like, oh no, Cherry, no, you're so doomed right now, no. But then seeing, oh my God, Cherry thought this through so well. It's such a brilliant reveal of like Cherry was the decoy. And
Cherry is such a freaking Albuquerque verse coded character, isn't he?
I think so. And look, to Rohit's earlier point, I had the same thought, and it makes me feel that the actor who plays Brett Mahoney has been a little cagey, because like it was said that he's coming back, and then he said no, but it's like there's like a trailer on set with his name, so it's hard to tell what's true and what's not with that. But
he'll show up at the end.
Yeah,
when we're really getting back into the swing of things, that's when Mahoney shows up.
That's the thing. So with that in mind, this Cherry feels absolutely like his role was probably in the heart of hearts was intended for Brett Mahoney, but they couldn't get Brett Mahoney. And now hopefully we're gonna give Mahoney good stuff, but the byproduct is Cherry's a lot of fun. Cherry's really cool though. I like Cherry. So we're hopefully, best case, we're getting 2 Mahoneys for the price of one. Just hopefully, I guess Mahoney will
or Cherry's about to get popped. Let's be real.
Okay. Anyway,
who's gonna whack Cherry? Is it gonna be Kingpin? Is it gonna be Bullseye? Is it going to be the Punisher? We'll wait to see.
Okay. Anyway, point being, Torres arrives right on cue, and just the palpable tension, especially after all the stuff with Nadim in season 3, just getting the danger, like, oh God, will our witness make it to court? And then he finally gets to court, and he's intimidated by the cops in the stands. Like, oh no, it's like you see Matt go from like such relief to like, okay, we're doomed.
Right.
All right, Rohit.
So, in terms of whether this would be legally realistic. I don't think this is legally realistic the way
Well,
this
of course
whole
not.
But
It's
but-
cinematic, though.
but
the more cinematic a courtroom scene is, the more it's probably not realistic. That's kind of my
But
rule.
I think
You're out of order. He's out of order.
I was this moment I'm conflicted mentally. It's like this doesn't make sense. This doesn't work. But I do have to say the sheer drama of Matt just taking out the white tiger mask and showing out, you're white tiger, aren't you? It's like very good, like lawyerly drama, and just the theatrics of it. Because I think here's the thing: it's like we have a lot, like we don't really have much legal courtroom stuff and superhero fiction outside of Daredevil. But and sometimes we'll have superheroes on trial or involved in the legal process, whatnot. But we don't really get the dynamics of like having a mask or like a piece of the costume or whatever in a courtroom, just for everyone to see. And I think the sheer just like surprise of it is very much just not good realistic lawyering. It's like just fun TV lawyering. Because here I'll break the reality of it but emphasize the fantasy of it at all at the end. The reality of it is that Matt Murdock put a motion limine that this not be discussed in court, the White Tiger stuff. And the DA has respected that motion limine.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's weird for him to just suddenly break this motion limine. The judge didn't even rule a mistrial after that. And here's the thing: it's like
they did talk about that.
To make good work is to somehow, if like White Tiger was convicted, that like Matt could maybe in some way appeal it and say that the White Tiger stuff was prejudicial. But it's like it's prejudicial, but you were the one who introduced it. You broke your motion to limine. Like you can't that's the thing where in the moment and just the shape of the episode, it's a great moment. Realistically, no lawyer would ever break their own motion to limine because that would lead to probably be sanctioned by the court. That would lead also to an obvious mistrial. Whichever firm you're working at, you probably are not going to be doing that next trial or even other trials because you don't break motion limines, especially your own. Like, what's the point in the court honoring your obligations of the parties to not have certain things be disclosed when they then become disclosed? And it's not by accident; it's by intention.
So, I mean, in fairness, just for the sake of like taking liberties, I do love that at least you're right. It's a huge leap in logic, you know, from a legal standpoint. But I do love that we address like the actual like here's what the ramifications would be, but the judge is kind of allowing it for the sake of drama for the story, though. I mean, I do like that at least we address that though, and how crazy a move that was. And as just watching it, it's like, oh my god, because you're thinking he can't because he suppressed it and he pulls it out. It's like, oh my god, that's. You know that it's a crazy move, and he is just the brass cojones on Murdoch in court.
I think it would have been more. I think it would have been interesting if somehow, like Matt was able to bait the DA or DA witness to like mention the White Tiger stuff. And because it was his motion to limine, and and then maybe the judge could have just stopped proceedings and then taken the two lawyers and asked, "Hey, counsel, like we obviously with your motion to limine being violated, there's grounds for mistrial and all that." And then Matt could have been the one to just like, "Hey, I'm going to actually waive my motion to limine," because then I think that would have been it's less like fun cinematic, but I think it would have been much smarter because then it's like. For parties to want to put those prohibitions, if those prohibitions have been violated, but the party enforcing prohibition is willing to waive it, and so long as it's like on the record and all that stuff, like the consent, I think that would have been much legally feasible than what happened in the actual episode. But it's not as like a cool, hey, like that. It's something you would see in like a comic book, right? When like, the lawyer just shows up, the mask and the whole drama. That would be the cover of that issue. So so it's awesome in the fun fiction sense. It's not awesome. It's grounds of anything for Matt to lose his license. But there's probably other things that have happened. What happened in season 2? Like Matt is not always a great lawyer. at least in terms of filling his obligations. But that's neither here nor there.
We've heard from counsel, folks. All right. Let's go to the Braille Trail. Okay, so let's go over some of our kind of our references and kind of like some things we might want to kind of plant some flags here on. So I guess a big one, White Tiger's death. So a lot of people were, understandably, because we love the guy, they were upset with White Tiger being killed. But I'm not just going to throw this out there saying, oh yeah, I knew about this from the comics, but I did a little research into it, some vague, some light research into it. This does adapt the story from the comics. He was killed pretty much. Matt Murdock defends him in court. And the trial went a little differently. Basically, he was found, I believe he was either found guilty or it was before they reached the verdict, but I think he was found like guilty in the comic. And what are you going to say, Rohith?
Yeah, so to give some more context. So this is sort of a loose adaptation of one of the arcs from Brian Michael Bendis' run on the character. And White Tiger was an established character in the Marvel comics since the 70s, but which is never really used a lot. And so Bendis he crafts a story where Hector Ayala is an active vigilante, and then he starts to stop a bank robbery or something of that nature, and it's like he gets mixed up, and the police thinks that he was responsible for the robbery or whatnot. And in that story, him and his wife were in the outs because of him being a vigilante, and the trial goes on, and in the trial, he's ruled guilty as charged, and in that in the aftermath of that rendering the charge, Hector kind of just flips out and just pulls a gun and is wanting to escape, and he gets shot down. So I think for me, it was sort of an interesting subversion to have Hector Ayala not actually be guilty as charged, but in light of the way the show runs, sometimes a happy moment in one instance is just a delay or deferral of a really sad moment for Hector. So,
right. I have one Easter egg that I noticed.
What do you got?
Officer Morales.
Yeah, it's wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking, yeah, sure. But Spider-Man is pretty connected to Daredevil, so
I know. Well, we referenced Spider-Man.
We do know that Miles Morales' father is famously a cop. Across the Spider-Verse made that perfectly clear.
Oh,
Then we retroactively changed his name because apparently the first name's too problematic.
I mean, it is the leader of the Confederacy. So I
you know what I have to say? Who cares? It's just the name.
What do you mean? Who cares?
Dragon.
If there was a Jewish character name, who? I think people would have some strong opinions about it.
I'm saying, okay, it's like you go through a phone book, you're gonna have a lot of people with names, and some of them committed mass murder. You can't arrest.
All right, guys, you're both pretty. All right, but yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't think we're gonna get Miles Morales in the MCU anytime soon. At least not until Spider-Man 4 at the very earliest, if that. But still, it's cool to know that, that Miles Morales' father because think about it this way. I do think that it's very in character for Miles Morales' father to have an encounter with the White Tiger that kind of leaves an impact on him that he feels compelled to speak in court about. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Well,
that does track with the character very
and also his wife and Miles' mother is Puerto Rican. So,
there you go.
It works.
Yeah.
So look, my hope is that it's actually actually Jefferson. I keep wanting to call it Jefferson Davis, but Jefferson Morales. I really hope it is him.
At the very least, I think it could be if kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, look, we had the Spider-Man reference in episode 2, so it's possible. Okay, so I'm sorry. With White Tiger's death, though, the fact that he ends up being killed, a lot of people were up. The way I want to weigh in with that is that I don't think it was. Some people said they shouldn't have killed him off, and I don't want to just blindly say they killed him off in the comics, so therefore it is right.
I think it's too early to tell one way or another. I mean, one thing I will say with the death is I honestly thought that the trial was maybe going to be like half the season, the same way that like the trial of Frank Castle was kind of like almost half of season 2 of the original Daredevil. And the fact that we've gotten through the trial and he's dead, and that's obviously like the result of the trial is going to send a shockwave on Fisk's end. And then Hector being killed is going to send a shockwave on Matt's end. Like, I think just from a storytelling point of view, I absolutely don't think this is a Phrygian situation. I think that we're really getting a lot of value story wise out of this death. I think it's going to lead to a lot, especially because Matt saw White Tiger essentially as the better version of himself. I truly feel like White Tiger is going to be kind of like what Matt aspires to be, bringing back Daredevil.
Yeah, now I only here's the gripe I have with it. Again, it's not that he died, because again, whether or not he died, again, hopefully will have a positive effect on our story. But beyond that, it's like, well, it's founded in the comics. It's adapting a Bendis story from the comics, and also again helps our story hopefully. But here's the thing. Again, I don't think it was a mistake to kill him, but I really think we should have given him either an episode or a montage before his arrest to really have gotten our money's worth out of seeing White Tiger in action. Because all we saw was him on like convenience store news footage. It's all we saw. And it was good what we saw. I like what we saw. It just feels like we kind of got gypped in seeing White Tiger in action. That's kind of given we're going to be talking about his heroic exploits. I mean, it's more of the idea of the vigilante than actually seeing White Tiger, kind of in action.
His intro into the show was a little bit like, whoa, okay, who is this that we're following?
I mean, that was cool. It's like, okay, White Tiger, nice.
Right,
Are we going to see him like do stuff before he's arrested or before he gets killed? Like, for example, I think it was very simple. Episode 2, if we opened with either while Fisk is giving a speech, we see a vigilante in action, like fully, like we see a day in the life of White Tiger, and then the end of the sequence, he changed out of the costume and he's walking home with the flowers, and
Sure, I could see that.
That's all we. That's honestly the minimum. I think a montage would have at least helped us get a better feel for like the kind of stuff that he did. And then the dichotomy of vigilante, still doing the right thing out of costume, and some cop, gets foolish enough to fight on a subway platform. Don't do that, kids. All right, we set. We set up the amulet, and the successors. Both our successors are kind of set up for White Tiger, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know how much a part of it is that, like, with how little White Tiger action we get, because the actor Comar de los Ruiz was like battling cancer, and it was like the people in the production were aware of it, and I wonder if he just wasn't physically be able to do.
I know he had a stunt guy in the suit doing the fighting stuff.
Yeah, but like if you want sort of scenes where just not him fighting, but like interacting with civilians or whatever, I think that would have been. I don't know. I think.
Well, he could have just dubbed him.
Yeah, no, I think there could have been a way in which, especially like with the 1 year later. Yeah, I think when we could have had White Tiger stuff in like all the way in episode 1, when we had the 1 year later thing.
Yeah.
And then maybe like White Tiger's doing his thing, there's a montage, and then suddenly like Matt sees White Tiger out in the wild and he has an interaction or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then that probably leads him to like go into the police station, even though he's under the pretense of doing like the DUI, finding a DUI client, he's actively looking or wanting to figure out if White Tiger's there. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's see. So again, I already mentioned my whole knuckle theory we keep showing a lot of bloody knuckles on the Kingpin. I don't think that's an accident. Okay. The omelet. We continue with here's what's great about the omelet. Okay. I love there's a bit of an arc with the omelet. Okay, the omelet it's intentionally unromanticized here compared to all the previous times we've shown the omelet in the original Daredevil series. It was a big moment. It was romanticized. Here, the omelet is just very, it's like it was like a bit of the reveal of the Kingdom, but then it's just like this is the most separated he and Vanessa have ever been with that omelet.
It's a low cholesterol, low fat omelet.
Yeah,
Kingpin is on weight loss tree.
It's seriously look. some people have joked that they recasted the omelet, which I think is really funny. But no, seriously, that's the thing, because it's like a different, it is kind of more of a low fat omelet if you look at it. It's not the yellow omelet that we're used to. It's like anyway. Let's see. Okay. So Punisher tattooed cops. This is basically the whole co-opting the Punisher logo, which is a real, again, kind of like with our political.
So we don't think that the guy who kills, like, it's definitely not actually Frank.
No, it's not.
Why on earth would Frank Castle just kill a vigilante who was already exonerated for being a good guy?
Dragon, I don't know. We never saw the face. I'm just clearing it off the list. All right. I'm sorry.
No, it's not Frank. It's not Frank.
Well, yeah, so it is. It's intended to make us think that, like, for the public, they're going to think it's Frank, but it is not. So, and again, I'm so fascinated by the fact that we've had, again, tastefully. I want to be very clear with it, tastefully, but not by accident. We've had parallels to real life stuff. Again, with kind of the political context of the Kingpin, which even season 3 dipped into, I think, really wisely, just without spelling it out. And now we're doing a little bit more in your face, but still in a way that's, that isn't really like, hammering in like, do you get it? Do you get it? It just seems like, with that, we also have like, the Punisher in real life, the Punisher symbol has been used in maybe not so positive ways, by people. So much so in the comics for a while, they did kind of change up his logo. It was a real epidemic. They gave him, like, he was with the hand for a while, so they gave him like a kind of a Japanese version of the Punisher skull, because they were worried people were really taking the Punisher skull and like slapping it on with American flags and a lot of bad stuff. So I love the fact that we've kind of taken that as kind of an inspiration, at least to some degree, and we've kind of added to kind of our kind of Blue Templar-esque cops. Kind of our this police brotherhood of, like, again, people like kind of maybe worshiping the Punisher in a really bad way.
It's really interesting that this show is very open about putting a good number of the police force in New York City in a questionable negative light. Which, I mean, the Netflix show, like, there was dirty cops, but it didn't feel like Daredevil was necessarily going against the police force. And I think part of it is because honestly, with the fact that Brett Mahoney, was kind of the avatar of like the good cops on the department. But since we don't have Brett Mahoney, we have just Cherry, who's like, is he retired or?
Yeah. Cherry's retired. He's retired
because he had his police badge out. So
I think it was like the courtesy thing. We're still going to keep the badge, and maybe it'll help.
Yeah. And so I think the fact that you have just a retired cop, and him not really challenging sort of the implications of there being a lot of corruption in the police department. It's very interesting that potentially Daredevil could be fighting against the police force. And maybe not alone. Maybe a certain Castiglione will pop up.
Oh, yeah. Also, speaking of which, another nod to little foreshadow Muse again. We had the Punisher graffiti.
Triggered.
Yep. So far, we've had the Kingpin getting a graffiti, and then the Punisher getting a graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, and also we've had in episode 2, we may or may not have seen Muse out of costume. Okay.
We did, yeah. We did, definitely.
Yeah. I think it's pretty safe to assume that was him, but I'm just saying, for the sake of like the show, like, we don't know yet.
Right.
Okay, so again, our gunman at the end clearly, like wearing the Punisher's, kind of tactical vest and everything. Let's see, BB Urich. Again, I like Fisk.
I like the idea of BB Urich in concept more than I actually like the execution of it. I just don't think we're doing enough with it, honestly.
I'm convinced BB Urich is entirely like again, kind of what we've somewhat found out. BB Urich feels entirely like, okay, in the original, before we're bringing in the Netflix stuff, we can't use Ben Urich because the Netflix show exists, but we could use BB Urich and kind of like vaguely allude to it.
Oh, God.
So that's really what it feels like. BB Urich, all of her segments, here's the thing, with the editing points that you've brought up, Tiki, the way we've edited all those BB Urich segments, they feel very much kind of like they feel the most choppy in terms of the edit in the whole show. So
like we don't really need them.
It feels like kind of they're trying to do Frank Miller, but it's just not quite. It's not quite.
It is. Now that you mention it, it is very. I can see.
They're going for the Frank Miller news, kind of like kind of takes on vigilante thing.
I personally like the BB report, like when you're just interviewing the average citizen of New York.
But she keeps talking to the same people over and over again. That's what bothers me.
You got to save up some money on the production. No,
one episode using the same people, fine, but like 3 episodes, same people, that's bad.
No, BB Uric as a character, I feel like she doesn't do much. I think the way she interacted with Fisk, it's like I feel like there should be more adversarial. And also on another note, Daniel Blake, I do not care for. Like, I know Michael Gandolfini is definitely a good actor, and I don't doubt that for the other projects that I've heard he's in. But man, I don't know if it's the performance or the writing, but Daniel Blake is just.
I think it's a wait and see with Daniel Blake. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. It feels, but you're right. Look, it could, Daniel Blake could fizzle out. He was very much. I forget if Blake was like kind of part of the old guard or not. I don't know. I believe he was. I believe he was like we were trying to pad out, kind of the supporting things, but I don't know.
Okay.
Regardless, BB again. I still love the tension of like you have to imagine. We're going to, she's going to learn that Kingpin killed her uncle.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually we gotta, we kind of have to do. That's the
It's
big
weird
intrigue.
that she doesn't have a strong feeling that he did, right? Like I feel like
kind of makes you question her skills as a journalist.
Yeah. Remember, she's the way she's tackling Fisk is kind of interesting. She's kind of on Fisk's side, but I don't know.
Right.
Maybe that's the point, though. To be like a big betrayal, like, oh my god, I'm such an idiot. How did I not?
Yeah. No, honestly, maybe that's where we're leading.
Yep. All right, let's see. Okay, I wanted to mention this in episode 1, but we were really short on time, so I just want to get in there. So, like, for posterity's sake, I loved in episode 1. We had the silly little costumes callback, which again was like such a one of my favorite Kingpin moments in season 1. Just at the end of it all, was that boiled down to these 2 people in an alley shaping each other's destiny. The whole I think one man, a silly little costume, can make a difference, and the Kingpin laughs. And the fact that we start there, and season 2 very much was Matt kind of bumping up against that challenge, and then top of Born Again, we have him like, if you or any of your friends in silly little costumes, like I want to buy people in silly costumes. I love that we kind of called that back. I just, it's great. And again, sets the tone for the whole kind of stance on the vigilantes, and just kind of bringing it back to just the whole like how he still views them as just like just demeaning the costume and the joke of vigilantism to him.
Uh-huh. The
fact that that was like the first time Kingpin really laughed with Daredevil, and then we kind of in that same scene is when we had him laughing at Daredevil with the whole silly costumes. Like I don't know, that's just me fanboying out about that callback. Anyway, yeah, I mean, aside from just a general theory about the blip, being how Kingpin got an early release, I think it's all really we didn't really have that mentioned here, so it's about it. Unless you guys have anything else you want to throw out there.
Good on my end, Rohit.
No, I get pretty much everything said. As said has been said.
The nod to Foggy was nice during the toast, the episode title.
That was I'm glad you brought that up, because that was nice, and also I feel like it's very much kind of like very sad timing that we're toasting to Foggy, and then literally the next thing we see is another good man getting gunned down.
Yeah.
Kind of like the cyclical nature of what Matt does and the world he occupies.
I think people are now in a state of fear, but based on how we every other episode we might Cherry might be dead in 2 episodes. I think there's just a lot of fear going on there.
Right. We're just starting to like this guy. He's the one new character who's really shining. Please don't kill him. Right.
Yep.
Okay, well, I think that does it, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we're good.
Yep.
Okay, folks, well, that's all for now until the next daring installment of Discerning Daredevil, Born Again. Don't do it! Don't kill Cherry! Look out, Cherry! Godspeed! Avoid any cops with Punisher tattoos!
If Cherry